Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 14, Episode 27. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us here this Friday. Steelers Nation, Dave, getting ready for week number 3. Pittsburgh Steelers traveling out west, their first road game of the year to take on the Las Vegas Raiders Sunday night. Each team 1-1 on the season. Dave, how you doing?
For Friday, not bad. Steelers Nation probably going to be taking over Las Vegas this weekend. I expect there's going to be a large amount of fans at that game on Sunday night there. So might feel a little bit home slanted, if you will. Probably not surprising overall there, but there is a large fan base here, and got a couple of bars dedicated to it and all. So going to be interesting. And this really sets up for an interesting game overall. You got two 1-1 teams that really haven't looked great, overall. They kind of rank down there in several statistical categories near the bottom. And, you don't want to get into must-win situations here with either one of these teams, but it would behoove the Steelers for sure to come away with a W Sunday night and play better overall in the process.
Yeah, that is
happy Friday, by the way.
Happy Friday, and that is for sure. But I think both teams kind of saying the same thing, 1-1, but not feeling too great about being 1-1 right now, and certainly itching to go 2-1. And speaking of Raiders, we'll talk with our friend. We talk to, it feels like every year now, Vinny Von Signor, Vegas reporter. And so we'll speak with him here in just a little bit, get his take on all things Raiders. But Dave, let's start off with the housekeeping. Pittsburgh making one roster move since we last spoke, filling up that extra spot, an open spot on their practice squad after Braden Fehoko got signed off of it to the 53-man roster. And so replacing him is wide receiver Deuce Watts, formerly of Tulane, was with Green Bay, undrafted rookie free agent. And so with some of the injuries there to Deontay Johnson, Gunnar Olszewski, adding a receiver to, for now at least, for that last practice squad spot.
Yeah, we'll see how long he sticks around. Kind of a vertical guy, right? Tulane product, a couple of interesting catches if you go back and search real quick on some highlights on him. So obviously with Gunnar kind of or not kind of listed with a concussion this week, and starting to trend toward him not dressing. Is he back in the doghouse again? I'm trying to figure out too. I need to get with Joel Corey, because vested guys were on that when they're on that week 1 roster. I think are guaranteed, but they did take his salary down to what did I say? It was like 1.4 million, wasn't it?
Okay.
Like that. And, obviously, you paid by week there. In other words, it wouldn't kill this team if they had to separate from Gunnar Olszewski from a salary cap guaranteed money standpoint and all like that. But wasn't it about 3 or 4 weeks into last season that Gunnar found himself on the inactive list? So we'll see how you're going to get into that here in a minute here, but see how the Friday injury report shakes out with Gunnar specifically, but I'm not expecting him to be active this week.
No, even if he did clear protocol, I don't know if he would dress. And I think actually, wasn't it week 2 last year? Wasn't that the Patriots game where he had the initial
you're right.
And I don't know if he was immediately inactive the week after, but week 2s are bad for Gunnar Olszewski, evidently.
Yeah, that's a good point.
All right, let's get into the injury report on Thursday, and it was a pretty lengthy list on Wednesday, which we expected. Short week, really physical game against Cleveland. Things trending in a better direction on Thursday. Practicing in full was Damontae Kazee with a calf. He sat out Wednesday, and then a couple of veteran guys getting a rest on Wednesday, practicing full Thursday, and Isaac Seumalo and Patrick Peterson after failing to practice on Wednesday. You had safety Minka Fitzpatrick with that chest bruise practice in limited fashion on Thursday. Ditto with Darnell Washington and a knee injury that he suffered late in that game against Cleveland. Marcus Golden limited with a knee, and then not practicing was, as we just kind of mentioned, Gunnar Olszewski with the concussion and Larry Ogunjobi with the foot. I know Ogunjobi did not practice last Thursday, and he still obviously played and played fairly well. So I'm less concerned right now than where I was a week ago. Minka Fitzpatrick telling reporters he does plan to play, and so I assume he's going to be good to go for Sunday night against the Raiders.
Yeah, keep your fingers crossed there for sure. And you come out of you get that report after the game Monday night about precautionary and going to the hospital, and just goes to show you how quick these things can turn either positively or negatively. And it seems like it's in a positive situation with him. And obviously if he goes, I don't know if we'll see if he goes limited or full today, but the fact that he met the media what was it, yesterday, and seems very optimistic about playing, it seems like something would have to happen at this point for him not to.
Sure, I think he's going to go, barring something unforeseen. Washington in the knee. How much concern? I think you pointed out on that. Was that the play he got tripped on? That
wham crunch or whatever you want to call it. Looked like he banged his knee pretty good because he was on his back, and the all 22. Neither the TV tape or the all 22 hang around just enough to see a little bit more, but he was smarting after that one. I think he banged a knee or something on somebody, because that whole you want to talk about a wham play, the whole play got whammed. There were bodies all over all over the ground on that failed play.
Yeah, it was more mosh pit than wham on that one. And one of the many issues, and I have a video today breaking down some of the issues with the Pittsburgh Steelers running game. And that's probably the most notable thing on Pittsburgh's side. Look at the final injury report on Friday today with the Raiders. Looks like Terry Wilson's missed a couple of days there, their rookie defensive end, the 7th overall pick, I believe, out of Texas Tech. But it appears they're going to have Devontae Adams and Jacoby Myers, their top 2 wide receivers. And so they're getting healthier and getting some reinforcements, I should say, for that Raiders offense.
Yeah, I mean, it is to have a rookie miss 2 practices in a row like that, especially the way he's played so far, and coming off of that all what was it, dated back to what, November of last year is when he had the foot surgery. And he isn't off to a great start, and obviously, and we talk a lot about this with Vinny, so I don't want to give too much away here, but they are almost into a forced situation with the Chandler Jones, or not almost, they are in a forced situation with Chandler Jones and his situation of rushing Tyree along. And once again, he'll probably play, but you would have liked to have him have a couple extra days of practice this week.
Yeah, for sure. For any rookie, you want to get them as many reps and work as possible, and that's not happening there. And you're right, Chandler Jones placed on the non-football illness list, and there's a whole personal matter that Vinny talks about a little bit, and the details are still relatively unclear right now, but obviously Jones will not play this weekend against the Steelers. All right, Dave, let's flip over to the coordinator corner on Thursday. Matt Canada, Teryl Austin speaking as they always do. And it's really the same old song and dance. I'm not trying to, criticize too heavily either guy. What can you say at this point? You kind of say the same stuff. The results are all that matters, but Matt Canada singing the same tune. We got to be better. We got to score points. It's on me, yada, yada.
Yeah, saying the attitude's fine, saying so I've been told about the Fire Canada chant, Monday night there. Asked about that 3rd and short play. What were you looking for? He just says that play didn't work. I'm never going to sit here and tell you why it didn't work. We've shown at times we've been pretty solid. I could probably count them on one hand, right?
You said in 3rd and short, right? And they were a good 3rd and short team last year. I'm pretty sure.
They short yardage last year. Yeah, absolutely they were. Look, last year we were good. It wasn't a good play. It didn't work. We run it up the middle. It doesn't work. It's no good. If we throw a pass incomplete, it's no good. It didn't work. Let's see, going on. What else? Was there anything that really stuck out that he said that was kind of off normal?
No, I mean, aside from the typical, red meat that you can throw at Steelers Nation, when asked about how to get your mojo back, he said, if you have the answer, you can let me know. Wasn't sure how to do it. Then there is no magic wand to get this offense back on track. It's one play, it's executing, hopefully better starts, get some confidence back that'll carry over throughout the game and throughout weeks of a season. I think maybe the most notable thing is that he mentioned Kenny Pickett has quite a bit of freedom at the line of scrimmage. And last year the discussion was, did they have hot routes and how much freedom did Pickett have as a rookie coming in, not starting from day one of the Steelers program back in the summer. So, what exactly does quite a bit of freedom mean? Hard to say, but as you would expect, a second-year quarterback, a lot more experience at his back, is going to have more autonomy to change things.
Yep. I think the other notable thing is asked about Broderick Jones, and if he could help you, maybe with an extra lineman and go jumbo a little bit more in this game. He says, I think that's certainly a possibility. We've explored that in the past. I think Broderick did a nice job last week. You weren't aware, but it wasn't known coming out where he was going to be. Broderick had a great week playing right tackle in practice and did in other words, he was talking about last week and the uncertainty, I guess, with Chukwuma Okorafor. He's coming along, blah, blah, blah. So we'll have to be on the lookout to see if maybe there's a possibility of seeing some jumbo, which really would not hurt my feelings against this Raiders defense. On Sunday night. So we'll have to see if that comes to fruition.
Yeah, I'm all for it. You gotta try something different to get this run game going, Dave. And I think, there's limitations to that 6 offensive linemen. Obviously, it kind of really signals run. There's no element of that, play action. But the tight end blocking has not been where it needs to be. I mean, Washington has had some moments, but he's also had his struggles, especially as more of a head up base blocker than ceiling guys or a down blocker. And Frymuth has, I think, really been pretty poor as a blocker. And so the Raiders, for example, they're using a 6 offensive lineman. Not that the run game is good, but that's their intent. I think Pittsburgh, for at least 2 or 3 plays, it's worth a shot.
Yeah, I agree. What do you, while we're talking about Matt Canada, Warren Sharp, who loves his stats, and I respect a lot of what he does. It's really driven deep. I don't think he offers a lot of context a lot of times. And look, this is an easy kill shot right now during the week, right?
This is fish in a barrel with Matt Canada.
This kind of stuff, and that's why he recorded the video and put the post, I would imagine. And look, I mean, it made its rounds on X, Twitter, fairly well. I mean, I retweeted. I mean, there's a lot of information in there. But long story short, he talks about pass rates and in shotgun versus under center and run rates, and how they're very, very, very skewed both ways. It's I mean, there's no lies detected there, that's for sure, with the info that he gives. But I think there's some context that's not there, and this is not me defending Matt Canada whatsoever. But when you go back and you look at in fact, where was it? 14 points. Let me see. I pulled some additional data to go out off the dropbacks in shotgun. Here's some context to kind of at least help better maybe frame. And once again, this is not to excuse Matt Canada, but dropbacks in shotgun in these first 2 games. Well, there's been 84 total dropbacks so far by the Steelers offense, 79 total dropbacks in shotgun, so only 5 under center, 44 total dropbacks in shotgun, down 14 or more points. So we've just wiped out when it comes to 79 of those total dropbacks in shotgun. 44 of those were in shotgun, down 14 or more points, which was obviously against the 49ers, right? And 30 total dropbacks in shotgun, down 14 or more points in the second half of a game. So you're talking, once again, there's nothing wrong with his numbers whatsoever. They're on the money, but when you've got only a 2-game sample size here, and you're talking about half of these dropbacks coming in shotgun down 14 or more points, it's going to skew the numbers. Mm-hmm. Now, if you were to wipe those out and then look at the rest of them, are they still skewed? He would have been better to have broken that down like this and still come out with the narrative on the back end of let's wipe out those 14 or more down 14 or more points, and then look at it that way. He could have still thrown his red meat out there, but I guess what I'm getting at here is it's a small sample size, and you're talking about all that time in that game against the 49ers in the second half that you were down 14 or more points. Let's look at it after this week is what I'm getting at.
No, I think it's a great point by you, and I hadn't done the math the way that you did, but that was the thought in my head when I saw that stat. They were down in the whole game, but playing catch up in the second half. So of course you're in shotgun throwing, and even on the 2-minute drive at the end of the first half, they're in shotgun because it's a 2-minute drive, and of course you're going to pass out a shotgun. So when you have basically 3/4 of that week 1 game being predictable, it's going to probably skew the numbers overall. And I know the whole run to set up play action is a bit antiquated, and it's not necessarily how it can work. But when you're not, running the ball well, it's harder to run play action, and the teams are less likely to do it, I should say. So it's going to maybe skew some of those under center passes as well. And they have not run a ton of play action this year because of that. And of course, because they were getting, killed in week 1. So yeah, again, I think Warren Sharp, I'm not his biggest fan. I mean, I don't pay much mind to it, but I think some of these stats are lacking the context that you're rightfully pointing out.
Right. And once again, it's an easy kill shot, and then there's nothing wrong with his stats, but it's just easy to throw that out there. I thought he'd be, I think he could have made even better points had he drilled these things down. Here's the thing. And it's probably one of the things to really keep the eye on the most, assuming that this team doesn't fall down 14 or more points, or more than two possessions in the second half here. Can Kenny Pickett be an under center quarterback and drop back?
Yeah, I mean, he did a lot of that at Pitt, and kind of from that West Coast system, which kind of has some roots in working under center. So there's no reason that he can't.
All right. Now here's the thing that was a little bit concerning when I went and looked at SIS for Kenny Pickett during his final season at Pitt. SIS has Kenny Pickett down for just 4 dropbacks, not in shotgun, for the 2021 season.
Okay, that's interesting.
Now, he had more dropbacks if you go back into like 2020, 2019. In fact, when I looked at that originally, I thought, man, do I have a check? Do I have a box checked wrong or something like that? But 4 dropbacks, not in shotgun in 2021.
Yeah, I mean, you know how the college game is these days, right? But they spread. Every NFL system, and basically every college system outside of the military academies, Navy, and all them. I mean, they're shotgun based. So that's the world that most teams live in, really, regardless of your scheme. All right,
here's my main takeaways moving past these first 2 weeks here when it comes to stats and tipping your hand and all like that. And this team hasn't been able to run well or run much overall because of game circumstances and all like that. We need to see more runs out of shotgun, right? True or false?
Sure. I mean, just more runs in general.
Right.
Hopefully play more competitive games that allow you to run the ball more often.
And while I don't think you're going to see a huge uptick in it, we need to see more dropbacks with Kenny from under center.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you don't want to be at, I think, the 90% run rate from under center that they are, but it's probably not a ton of snaps we're looking at in general, and just game circumstance, will dictate things, goal line situation, all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, I think the sample size is still a bit too small to talk about some of those broader shotgun under center run pass numbers.
Right. And look, they have to know these splits, right? These percentages.
You would hope so, yeah.
So that's one thing I think moving forward for if you want to try to just look objectively at this coming out of these numbers presented by Warren Sharp, I think the things that you need to look for is running out of shotgun more, and at least some sort of small uptick in dropbacks with Kenny Pickett under center. And then the other thing, of course, is play action. I think they ran play action 5 times against the Browns in total. 2 of those were those completions to George Pickens, 90 something yards, and the 1 touchdown in there. The 3 incompletions, the third completion was the Gunnar Olszewski play. It's not hard for people to recall that probably in their mind. One of the 2 incompletions, one was, I think, a deep one to Calvin Austin. It was down the left side, I believe. And the other, I think, was batted down screen to Najee.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, hopefully they can work more of that. I think there's an opportunity to do that against the Raiders, but we'll just have to see how things look on Sunday night.
All right. I'll circle you back to the press conference now.
Yeah. Well, actually, just kind of sticking with some thoughts here. I mentioned on Wednesday's show about how often has this team pulled their guards on a run play. And I went back through all the run plays. Not that there were many run plays to look at. It was a pretty quick study, but they have not pulled their guards once on a run play this season. And again, it's 2 games. I just mentioned the small sample size, but that's alarming to me. They actually pulled them more often on pass plays and play action than they have on run plays. They did pull Mason Cole once, and they've had some counter action with the back, but not by the guards. And for a team that can't get a run game going and is trying some different schemes and being varied, and I should have charted the success rates and I didn't, but their zone scheme has really been poor. I think they've done a much better job, at least relatively speaking, in their man duo scheme, getting just straight downhill than these inside zone runs. But I mean, we talk about it, Dave. In Pittsburgh, when they have good run games, they pull guards, and they are not pulling Daniels or say Mullen. I think you have 2 guys that are capable of doing it. You play your bully ball, you get physical up front, and I don't know why we're not seeing it.
And they don't have a true fullback, so it's not like they can unless they elevated Xander Horvath off the practice squad. But even he was more. I mean, he's one of those kind of more Mike Allstott. Well, I mean, he can carry the football. He's not a Kreider or anything like that. So in other words, if I my visions of running that old slant 39 boss with the fullback and all and pulling out the guards of that side. Have we seen it? We haven't even seen much pin and pull or anything, right?
No, I think I only had maybe 1 snap, because that was the one where they pulled Cole around. So I think there's only been 1 pin and pull run this year.
And that stuff's got to be in the playbook, right?
I mean, you hope that, basic.
I mean, they're basic runs
would be in there. Sure. I mean, I know that they've generally been under Pat Meyer, and this really falls under Meyer more than it does Canada. So I'm not trying to take the shot at Canada here, but their personality is more of a zone scheme. But it's not working. I think Mason Cole has really struggled in zone schemes. I think they've struggled when D-line slant in one gap, and it really screws up Pittsburgh's track and helps leave linebackers running free. I mean, I just think the zone scheme has been a wreck. And again, I just go back to in Pittsburgh, when you have a good run game, DeCastro, Vanica, Mullins in the 70s, like you got those guards on the move. Well,
this would be the week to pull that stuff out.
Yeah, what are you waiting for? You got to jumpstart this run game. And again, it's not just that. It's just, the principle, let's be physical, in these man schemes, these gap schemes, you're more physical, you're more, assertive, you're more playing your bully ball. And so it kind of helps maybe get your confidence back when you're washing down some of these ends and you're cracking a linebacker on a kick out block and you're just kind of really imposing your will. Then kind of more of this zone track will all flow down the line. That, of course, can be physical and, inside zone and, duo. It's kind of always a joke about, which is which. But I just think, if you want to be physical, then let's run some physical, counter action to get that confidence in Pittsburgh.
Now they do have a guy that can work downhill and deliver a pop on the other side of that football, but I would really test Bob Spillane this week, and he's going to be on. He's barring injury, he's going to be on the field for 100% of the snaps and all like that. But and look, like Todd Haley and really Bruce Arians to that degree, if you get something in that run game that works. I would be like Herb Brooks in Miracle on Ice again. Todd Haley was not shy about having a run play that worked and running it over and over and over again until teams showed that they could stop. But look, none of this moving forward with this offense, in my opinion, is going to matter unless this team can start running the football. And we talked about this team needs at least 60 yards rushing against the Raiders on Sunday night to avoid becoming the worst rushing game start in franchise history. Well, since the merger, when it comes to rushing totals here.
Yeah, and we'll talk about it more when we get into our actual preview of this game. But if you can't run against the Raiders, man, then you can't run against anybody. Like, you should be able to impose your will against this unit.
Right, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in our game breakdowns here, which you guys did good job on both offense, defense, scouting reports. Again, it's very, very informative here, and it matches the tape and all. But take us anything else from Matt Cannon before we go to Austin?
No, we'll go to Austin right now. And again, there wasn't a whole lot more to say other than him pointing out in the run game that teams will continue to run the ball and prove that Pittsburgh can stop it. And that makes sense. And said there's no excuse for giving up 60-plus yard runs in back-to-back weeks, which is also true. So they know the score. I mean, Pittsburgh statistically has the worst run defense in football through the first 2 weeks. They face some good rushing attacks, and the Raiders' running attack is sputtering and struggling, but they want and need to run the football, and so they're going to test that Steelers unit. There's no question about that.
Right, and Joey Porter's still going to be a third down guy.
Yeah, I know Austin floated the possibility of expanding his role, but I don't expect it to happen this week. I think, essentially he's still saying that his role is his role, and that role is playing in dime packages.
And you wisely pointed out in one clip this past week that hey, he's playing in some zone too.
Yeah, I know we talked about the fourth down incompletion that he helped force with that man coverage there, and that was a good rep. But I liked the rep on third down in the first half more, the actual breakup, because he was doing things that he didn't necessarily do a ton of in college, where he's playing cover three, the deep third, and having to transition and flip his hips and drive on the football and use his length to break it up. You really see that how the advantage of how long he is on that breakup there. So, I mean, both reps were good, but I think him in that zone rep to see something different from his game was really encouraging.
I would agree there, and I think they're going to continue to. I envision after the bye week, that's probably when this is going to happen. It's coming.
Well, here's the concern though. He's a left cornerback. That's primarily what he's been in Pittsburgh. Talked about that. So yes, okay. So how does it look then? Who gets moved where? Who gets benched? Walk me through that.
I mean, that side seems to be his side, and you want him comfortable, right?
Right.
So if he comes in, that's going to be his side.
So what happens to Wallace and Patrick Peterson? Because Wallace is the right corner, Peterson, you're starting left corner right now.
Yeah, I think maybe you see Peterson on the other side.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that might be the cleanest thing, but Peterson, I think, likes that left side. And are they going to bump him over for the rookie? Maybe they could. I mean,
unless starting, this week we start seeing Porter get some other side reps, right?
Sure. And I mean, he has played some right corner. I know he did that in camp a little bit, and I'm sure he did some of that at Penn State. But I just know in Pittsburgh, at least, he's predominantly, I don't know, just guesstimating 90% of his snaps have come at left corner. I think everything inside a stadium has come at left corner. And so I don't want to put him at right corner and have him kind of, deal with that on the fly, as opposed, in addition to, I should say, him getting all those extra reps. So I understand the thought there, and I'm not opposed to Porter's role expanding. Of course, at some point it will. There's just a little bit of messiness and some things to work through to actually, make that happen.
But you agree it's going to happen. It's going to happen sooner rather than later, right? Or no?
I don't have a timetable on it exactly. I think Pittsburgh's, going to generally slow play him. It may be where injury takes care of that. Somebody gets hurt and that kind of creates a bigger role. I just don't know exactly how it's going to look for that bigger role for Porter right now.
Okay. All right.
And just in terms of sides and it's I mean, it's not like this is impossible problem, but just I want to mention that because I think that kind of gets lost in the whole just instinct to say, well, start Joey Porter Jr.
And look, sometimes these, like we talk about the offensive line and Broderick Jones, so these things sometimes just have a way of working themselves out, through, injury, attrition, or extremely poor play or whatnot. But it's going to happen, and I envision it happening at the latest after the bye.
All right, fair enough. All right, Dave, let's take a pause here. We're going to come back with our friend Vinny Bonsignor. He is, let me get all his bio here right, covers the Raiders for VegasNation.com, also host of the morning tailgate show for Raider Nation Radio. Follow him on Twitter at Vinny Bonsignor. That's BONSIGNORE. And as he'll mention here in our conversation, I think the Raiders or the radio company or someone like that is hosting a little get together for a little tailgate for Raiders fans, and Steeler fans are invited too. That's going to be Saturday at 6 p.m. at the Red Tail at Resorts World. So a meet and greet opportunity there. So be sure to check that out at 6 p.m. and tell them Steelers Depot sent you. So we'll take a pause and come back with Vinny.
Okay, welcome back to the Terrible Podcast. It is Friday. Actually, it's Thursday, but you'll be hearing this on Friday. The Pittsburgh Steelers play the Las Vegas Raiders on Sunday night, primetime game in Las Vegas. And that means, I think, for a couple years in a row now, we obviously had them on last year for the game right around Christmas time there against the Raiders. I'm, of course, talking about Vinny Bonsignor. Vinny covers the Raiders for the Review Journal. They brand that VegasNation.com is the best way to get at that site. You can follow his work on Twitter at Vinny Bonsignor, which is BONSIGNORE. And you can also follow the Vegas Nation account at Vegas Nation on Twitter /X. He also hosts the Raider Nation radio show. We'll have him talk a little bit more about that at the end, because we know a lot of Steeler fans are coming in town this weekend for the game. So with that, long introduction. Vinny, happy Thursday /Friday, and welcome back to the Terrible Podcast.
Oh, man, I really appreciate you having me. And for all the Steeler fans that are coming in for the game, if you're here Saturday, come over and visit with us over at the Red Tail at Resorts World. We do like a night before game party, and yes, there's a lot of Raider fans, but they're all really cool. And I'm sure they would get a kick out of seeing some Steeler fans. You guys could talk about things, have some. My show is sponsored by Dos Catas Tequila. They'll be out there on Saturday night, and great food, great atmosphere over at the Red Tail. So the Red Tail over at Resorts World at 6 p.m. If you guys want to join us, you're more than welcome.
Yeah, please do that. When you see Vinny, tell him, you heard him on, you've listened to him on the Terrible Podcast last couple of times, and thank him for coming on the show when you do there. All right, Vinny, let's get after it here. The Raiders 1-1 at home hosting the Steelers here. Mike Tomin looking for his first win against the Raiders ever on the road. The Steelers just don't play, or, don't have, and for several years, even before Tomlin as well, too. They've struggled out west, but this is a Raiders team coming off of a pretty big loss against the Buffalo Bills last weekend. They opened up looking kind of okay, but the rumors of the Josh Allen demise were greatly exaggerated. He really took over that game. Vinny, give us, kind of your 30,000 foot opinion of this Raiders team just 2 weeks into the season here.
Yeah, it's a team that I think is often offensively still trying to put it together. Of course, Jimmy Garoppolo, the new quarterback for the Raiders, really wasn't cleared to start playing football again until the very first day of training camp. So there was no OTAs and no offseason program for him. And, I think that process is definitely ongoing. And you've got Josh Jacobs, who missed all of OTAs and all of training camp. in a contract dispute, and he's gotten off to a slow start. So they're trying to get him acclimated back into things, get his legs under him, get the chemistry with the offensive line. So it's an offense right now that I think will see better days ahead of them. Looking at the film and talking to some players, they feel like there were a lot of plays that they left on the field on Sunday, really frustrating for them. But they feel like it's there for them. So I think offensively, getting Jacoby Myers back, it looks like he's headed in the right direction coming out of concussion protocol. We'll see what his status is for that game on Sunday. But I think the offense, right now it's not where it needs to be, but I think it has a chance to be pretty good. Defensively, that's been an issue for a long time, for the Raiders. And they played reasonably well against the Denver Broncos, but it was a completely different story on Sunday against the Buffalo Bills. I give Josh Allen a lot of credit for taking what the Raiders defense was willingly giving him. They were intent on not giving up the big play. They didn't, but he didn't even really try to. He didn't have to. It was all short, careful, disciplined throws along with the running game that the Raiders simply couldn't stop. So it's a little bit of a different story on defense. They just haven't been able to put it together really. And Sunday was a kind of an eye opener. And here's the thing, on paper, you look at this Steelers offense, and I don't have to tell you guys that it hasn't been good right. Over the first 2 weeks. Well, they're playing a defense that hasn't been all that great either. And I think if you're a Raider fan, it would be a huge disappointment if they can't at least put the clamps somewhat on the Steelers offense. I'm not saying that the Raiders are expecting to pitch a shutout or anything like that, but if they can't slow this offense down based on how it's looked at the first 2 weeks of the season, that's probably not good news for the Raiders defense moving forward.
When you look at the Raiders rushing attack so far, obviously not where they were hoping it was going to be. Now the game against the Bills got away from them, kind of much in the same fashion that the Steelers game against the 49ers in week 1 got away from them. Kind of get you out of what you want to do running the football there. But I mean, overall, 116, I think, rushing yards so far. Josh Jacobs only 46 of those, averaging 1.6 yards. Tucker's got that long run for them, and if you take that, I mean, it's hard to cherry pick just two weeks into the season here, but a long story short, their running game though still is better than what the Steelers has been 2 weeks in here. What have you seen as the biggest issue with that run game right now? Other than the fact that they were behind the 8 ball and had to kind of abandon it for the most part against the Bills.
Yeah, and it's been 2 weeks in a row, so even though they haven't really run it a whole lot. I think maybe 23 times in 2 games with Josh. It just hasn't worked at all. And I think it's a combination of things. I do think missing all of training camp and OTAs set Josh back a little bit in terms of, being in shape, the legs, the vision, the timing with the offensive line. And then I think that, right now the offensive line just isn't doing a great job blocking for him up front. There's been a bunch of plays where he's gotten met behind the line of scrimmage with zero chance even to get to the line of scrimmage. So, I think what the Raiders are thinking though is this is Josh Jacobs. He led the league in rushing last year, over 1,600 yards to lead the league behind an offensive line that, as the year went on last year, got better and better. It became one of the strengths of the team, and I think that they feel, based on history, that eventually that running game is going to get going. But right now it just isn't clicking, and they need it to, because this offense wasn't built to be one-dimensional. No offense is, but this one in particular, with Jimmy G, kind of more of a distributor. He's not going to really challenge teams down the field all too often. They need the running game for him to be able to really maximize the weapons that he has and the style that he plays, and they just haven't had that. But they feel like the answers are within, and then it's going to eventually happen and come.
I know we're audio only here, Vinny, but it's like looking into a mirror talking about these offenses and the struggles that each one have had right now. To stick with the offense and quarterback, why did the team decide that Jimmy Garoppolo was the right guy to replace Derek Carr? And have you learned how to spell Garoppolo yet? How long did that take you?
It didn't take too long. I am Italian, so
okay, fair.
It's been fun getting to know Jimmy G as he's known, and kind of we've already been trading restaurant ideas out here in Las Vegas. So fun getting to know him on that level. But to answer your original question, when they decided to basically move on from Derek Carr, which ironically enough was immediately after that Steelers game last year in Pittsburgh. Right. That was sort of the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak. They had been kind of souring on him for a little while, but after that game, it was that they weren't going to play him anymore, and decided to move on from him. And that was step one. That was the decision to move on from him. Was independent of who his replacement was going to be, and there were a whole bunch of possibilities and paths that they were willing to take. It wasn't like they had Jimmy G, locked up at the time that they moved on from Derek. He was definitely among the possibilities, as was Tom Brady. And if neither of those worked out, then, they were content on maybe going to get a Jacoby Brissett or somebody of that, ilk, or maybe trading up to go get a quarterback. So they had a lot of different options to go toward. And I think more than anything, it was really moving on from Derek Carr and starting over at quarterback. Is Jimmy G the quarterback of the future? No. Is he the quarterback they feel at this point can help stabilize them and keep them competitive? Yeah, that's exactly what they believe. And so when it all kind of came about, he was literally the best option at the time. They had a kind of an ace up their sleeve. Josh McDaniels was the first offensive coordinator for Jimmy G. Jimmy's talked about how I didn't know anything about being an NFL quarterback. They didn't have a playbook at his college. I still don't know if that's literally didn't have a playbook or what, but he's adamant that he didn't know anything. They didn't huddle up at his college. It was just sort of your typical kind of, not typical, but just sort of unorthodox college offense. So he credits Josh McDaniels with teaching him literally from the ground floor up how to play NFL quarterback. And so there was definitely a familiarity there. He's played in this offense. It's been a few years, obviously. He went to San Francisco and learned an entirely new offense under Kyle Shanahan, but there was familiarity, there was confidence, there was faith. And I think from Josh McDaniels' standpoint and Dave Ziegler, the general manager's standpoint, they felt like that Jimmy G gave them the best opportunity right now to be as competitive as possible. They don't view themselves as, they're not going to say this publicly or anything like that, but there's no delusions that they're a Super Bowl team right now. There's a lot of holes on this roster that they're trying to address. There was a lot of bad drafting going on here before they got here. And, they understand that it's going to be a process to fill those holes, but they feel like they could be competitive right now while simultaneously building a foundation for the future. It's kind of a double track that they're on, and they felt like Jimmy gave them the best opportunity to maximize the one side of the track that they're on, which is to try to win as many games right now.
Wanted to ask you about two skill guys, one no longer with the team and one who may not be there much longer. Hunter Renfrow, just one catch, one target through 2 games in a situation where Myers didn't play last week. Is he going to be traded? Is he kind of on his way out? And then a tight end, Darren Waller did get moved. You draft Michael Mayer. Doesn't seem like the tight ends have gotten a lot of looks so far. So what's the story on Renfrow and how are they replacing what Waller provided?
Yeah. So, with Hunter, it's been slow going. Really the last 2 years. Last year, you could kind of attribute to injuries. He got really suffered a really nasty concussion in week 2, and that set him back. And then there were 2 other injuries as upon coming back that really set him back. So he didn't play a whole lot of football last year for the Raiders. And when he was out on the field, it just wasn't working. He was kind of slow to transition to the Josh McDaniels offense after kind of mastering John Gruden's offense. So there was that. Would they trade him? It would have to take, a significant offer. I mean, he's not going to be somebody that gets a first round pick or anything like that. But there is a contract that the trading team would inherit, and some of that money is left to be paid out this year. So that would be something that a trading team would have to assume, and I don't see that anyone's necessarily going to do that. So I'd be surprised if he got traded. They're not going to cut him or anything like that. There's too much money invested in him. One way or another, he's just going to have to figure out his way, and they're going to have to figure out a way to get him more involved. Now, one thing I'll say is this goes back to the Raiders kind of looking at the film and understanding that they left some plays on the table. Well, there were at least a few occasions in Buffalo where he was breaking wide open, and Jimmy just missed him. Whether he wasn't looking, whether he felt some pressure, whether he just didn't pick it up, he just didn't see him. And there's frustration in that, but there's also a little bit of hope, because as everyone's basically said, look, saw it on the film. So that's one you put in the memory bank for future reference, because I don't think that Jimmy's going to miss many open ones like that anymore moving forward. So it's on the radar. He saw it. He understood what happened and what the error was. So I would expect that Hunter, is going to get more looks moving down the line. And Josh McDaniels basically said on Monday he should have been targeted more than he was on Sunday. He saw the tape and he understood it too. So I think he's not going to know. What's so interesting about Hunter Renfrow, if you go back to his first couple of years, he's 45, 50-ish kind of catches. Mm-hmm. As the slot wide receiver, but everything sort of changed in 2021. And if you look at that year, there were a lot of reasons that led to the ball going to Hunter quite a bit. Number one, the Henry Ruggs situation that all came about in October, pretty fairly early in the season. So then Darren Waller went out for an extended period of time. So to be perfectly frank, there really wasn't many places to go with the football at that point. So he kind of became the de facto go-to guy. And I think that he ended up catching about 100 balls or so that year, which is great for him. But I don't know if that's the ideal way to use Hunter Renfrow. So I think he's sort of, but the thing is, it created a lot of expectations among fans. And then on top of that, when Dave Ziegler and Josh McDaniels got here, they gave him a contract extension coming off that 2021 season. So my point being is that I think he's better suited being a guy that he was the first couple of years of his career, being a complementary wide receiver. In that first year, those first 2 years was really complementary to Darren Waller. When he was healthy, he was the focal point of the Raiders passing attack, and the numbers showed that. But when they had to manufacture something, when Darren went out and the situation with Henry came about, Hunter obviously benefited. Well, now he's playing in an offense with Davante Adams, and who do you think is going to get the ball? It's the best wide receiver in the game, or one of the best wide receivers in the game. And then on top of that, you added Jacoby Myers, who in that first week before suffering the concussion was really a great compliment to Davante on the other side. So Hunter's back to being, that second and third kind of an option that he was his first couple of years. I think the numbers are going to show that, but I think he could still have an impact. It's just going to be on numbers that don't look like the numbers in 2021.
Vinny's flipping over to the defensive side of football, obviously the marquee name, Max Crosby over there, primarily rushes and plays over there on the left side, much in the same way that TJ Watt does with the Steelers there. He's getting a lot of attention on his side in these first two games when you look at the tape there, and that's primarily because of his counterpart on the other side, first-round draft pick, Tyree Wilson. Having a tough road. I think even Brian Baldinger came out with a video a day or two ago, 3 days ago, whenever it was, coming out of that Buffalo game there. Tyree, I think, has had, a foot issue and kind of a slow start to this thing. And now to make matters worse, I think he's on the injury report these last 2 days with an illness and not practicing there. Is he going to play? And if he plays, where is he at? I mean, obviously it hasn't been what they want it to be out of Tyree Wilson, and that's causing a guy like Max Crosby to get all the attention, which, he obviously deserves on that other side. But what's it looking like on the edge? And also, Chandler Jones going on the NFI list this past week doesn't help matters.
Yeah, and I think it kind of all starts with Chandler. This was a plan, a script that got torn up before filming began, because Tyree, the Raiders drafted Tyree understanding that, he was coming off a significant foot injury that he suffered at Texas Tech in early November. He hasn't played football up until he wasn't even cleared to get on the practice field until about a week left in training camp. Or so. So the whole plan was for him to be sort of an understudy to Chandler Jones initially, and he was going to share time with Chandler and spell Max Crosby on the other side from time to time. Sometimes they were, depending on how well he was progressing, they were going to play those three in conjunction, and that's what they were going to do. There was total understanding that he wasn't going to hit the ground running right off the bat. That there was going to be limited use, and that this was a 5-year plan, not a 1-year plan, and certainly not a 1-month plan. But everything went out the window with the situation that began with Chandler right before the season opener, and obviously he hasn't been around the team at the facility, nothing since that first week. Right before that first game, and so the Raiders have had to scramble a little bit, and unfortunately for Tyree, who I think is going to be a good player, but he's just not quite there yet. Understanding the defense, being in football shape, but he's got to play because they really don't have many other options. He's splitting in time a little bit right now with Malcolm Kuntz, a third-year player, but between them. Right now, those two have 2 tackles and 2 quarterback pressures, and that obviously is not very good. So they need Tyree to get there quicker than they were planning for, and there's no guarantee that he is. This was something that I think they felt halfway into the season he'd really start settling in and being where he needed to be physically and understanding the defense. So. Major curveball got thrown to the team and certainly to Tyree Wilson. And I know that he's kind of taken the brunt of it on social media, but I kind of feel for him a little bit because this was not part of the plan right now. It's just sort of forced because of everything that happened with Chandler, and that's a whole other issue. It's I don't have to probably tell anybody. I'm sure even Steelers fans have seen all the posts and the kind of ramblings that he's put out there, and some of the photos that he's put out there, some of the screenshots of conversations that he's had with the owner, with the head coach, with Larry Fitzgerald. It's odd, and the Raiders obviously are describing it as a personal matter. I think that speaks for itself. I know a lot of readers and a lot of people want answers right now, but this is one of those ones, especially in today's climate with how we're handling mental health and the importance of that and the appreciation for it. I think everyone understands that something's going on that's above and beyond football. So answers will come at some point, but I think everybody understands what's best is to try to make sure that Chandler Jones is okay ultimately. And I know the Raiders are trying to do that, and I know we as reporters are respecting that because there's something going on, and I think that's pretty obvious.
They just going to use that 3, I would expect though Wilson's going to play Sunday. Is that the expectation? And then you talked about Kuntz being the next guy up. Is there a 4th man in that rotation?
Jerry Tillery kind of slides on the outside, and Tyree's going to play. He's played the first couple of games, so he's played roughly 70-ish snaps. So he's kind of slowly getting his legs under him, but he'll play. Is my expectation. I know that there's been some. He's been banged up a little bit, but I would expect him to play. You never know, though, obviously, and they're gonna be as careful as they possibly can with Tyree. So we'll see. And in terms of who might else be in there, like I said, Jerry Tillery, Isaac Rochelle. who's been on their practice squad. He went to Notre Dame and played 5 years or so in the NFL. But again, none of those guys are Chandler Jones, obviously, and even Tyree isn't Tyree Wilson, or the Tyree Wilson that the Raiders are expecting at some point. So they're behind a rock in a hard place over there on that other defensive end position.
Vinny, I think for Steeler fans, one familiar face they'll see on the Raiders squad this Sunday is Robert Spillane signing over this offseason. Give us an update on good old Bob Spillane. He's played every single snap for you guys this year. Just kind of give me a Cliff Notes version on his role and how he's done so far.
Yeah, and I think he's quickly, and I expected this after meeting Robert and getting to know him a little bit. He's cut right out of the linebacker, central casting, and certainly as a Pittsburgh Steeler type linebacker, and you're almost synonymous when you talk about Raiders and the Steelers. So they're kind of cut from the same cloth a little bit. So he definitely fits right in, and I think Max Crosby referred to him the other day as a maniac in a good way. A couple of Mac guys that have really bonded, but he's all football. And I know he's excited. We talked to him today about playing his former teammates and the Pittsburgh Steelers, but it's definitely all football for him. And he's been one of the bright spots of the Raiders defense. There's been a couple, and I think there's some talent on the Raiders defense, Spillane included, Marcus Epps, the veteran safety, Divine Diablo has been having a really nice year, the third-year linebacker, Jacorian Bennett, a young cornerback from Maryland, and obviously Max, but it just hasn't, especially in that Buffalo game, they just haven't been able to kind of put all those new pieces together. And they're hoping, obviously, that happens against the Pittsburgh Steelers on Sunday.
Sure. My last question for you, then I'll let Dave finish things up. To stick with the defense, I think what struck me the most about that unit is they don't really change their personnel too much. I mean, when they're base defense, it's a 4-2-5. They're really counting on Nate Hobbs to kind of be that de facto linebacker, and he's got a bunch of tackles this year. Why don't they run, say, a 4-3 with 3 linebackers when teams go heavy? I'm seeing Denver, Buffalo, they're putting multiple tight ends on the field, and the Raiders do not really match that. What is the rationale behind that, especially for a run defense that has not been good overall 2 games in?
Yeah, I think that's something that they may have to look at changing it up a little bit. I know that they like Robert, and Luke Masterson is a young player that they like as well. And obviously I talked about Divine. So, maybe having 3 linebackers out there is their best bet. On the other hand, Nate Hobbs is literally one of their best defensive players. And he's more than just a cornerback. He's kind of just a football player. And so they're probably a little bit concerned about taking Nate off the field because he does so much for them. So I think that probably plays into it a little bit. They haven't quite as much this year as I thought that they would, but I think they're going to start getting to this too. 3 safeties. That's something that they worked on a lot in training camp. They did quite a bit of it last year as well. So, but that's always going to come at the expense of a linebacker. And the other issue is that they haven't gotten real good play from the interior of their defensive line yet. So that sort of exasperates the situation. If those guys were doing their job a little bit better, especially in that Buffalo game, it probably wouldn't have been felt, not having that extra linebacker out there as much as it was, but they didn't. And so it did. And they just had a hard time, tackling and getting guys to the ground. And that was really, when you think about that Buffalo game, they controlled the line of scrimmage from an offensive standpoint and a running standpoint. There was really not much that the Raiders could do about it.
When you look at a couple things that stick out to me, the Raiders through 2 weeks, with opposing quarterbacks, were 16 of 21 for 155 yards with 2 TDs when using play action. And the other thing that kind of stuck out to me is that their defense has allowed 16 catches for 112 yards and a touchdown to opposing tight ends through the first 2 games. Now, the Steelers have not used Pat Freiermuth hardly any in the passing game so far, and the Steelers on offense seem to be a little, they had some success, but they only used a limited amount of play action in that game against Cleveland the other night. they connected twice to George Pickens on it when they did there. But are these two areas that, along with trying to establish the run, something else the Steelers haven't been able to do on offense, but is this the key to, in a nutshell for the Steelers, establish the run, or at least try to establish the run up front, use some play action, and then get the tight ends involved in the passing game?
Yeah, definitely. One thing that the Raiders, would counter with is saying, not giving up any big plays, and it worked against Denver. They were able to. There were a lot of completions. This is where sometimes statistics can be a little bit tricky. If you looked at it simply by completions given up, it didn't look good, especially for the defenders individually themselves. But what they did a great job of was tackling. So there were a lot of completions, but they weren't going for a lot of yards. And by and large, the Raiders knocked them down before the yard marker, and especially on third downs, and forced them to punt and things like that. So the Raiders feel like, don't give up the big play. If they want to go short, use their tight ends and complete passes. It's easy to do that in the NFL if you have a competent quarterback. But the key is get guys to the ground as quickly as possible. If they do that, they like their chances in that regard. But if they're not tackling, and that kind of was the case against the Buffalo Bills, it all goes for naught, because not only are you giving up those short passes turn out to be 8-yard gains, 11-yard gains, 13-yard gains, and they're moving the chains or putting you in really good, down to distances. So, if I still think that that's the approach that they're going to take, especially with Pickens, and I would imagine that they're going to try to put some pressure on him through some blitzes and whatnot. But I think what they're going to try to do is take away the big plays and force him to play a disciplined game. And then tackle well, hoping that he's going to make a mistake here or there. But if it kind of plays out, especially in that early in the game, kind of like it did against the Buffalo Bills, they're definitely going to have to change something, because if they're giving up easy passes and not tackling, and teams are just marching down the field by taking what the defense is giving them, they're going to end up gassed, just like they were against Buffalo, and not be able to hold up against that.
I think they've been playing mostly 2-to-1 zone to man in the back end. That sound about right?
Yeah, it's Patrick Graham for what, and he was kind of touted as a guy that wanted to run a lot of man coverage, but that hasn't necessarily been the case. I think they're probably making it a little bit easier for Ja'Cory Bennett, the rookie, and Marcus Peters is a decent zone defender. He's probably not suited to be that kind of lockdown man-to-man cover guy. So, but the problem with that too is if you're not getting a pass rush consistently, then there's definitely areas in the zone defense that you can exploit as a quarterback, and that's definitely what Josh Allen did last week.
Who's the one guy on special teams to pay attention to for the Raiders this week?
If you're talking about, their punter and kicker are as good as it gets. So AJ Cole and Daniel Carlson on that end of things. DeAndre Carter, he's a touted return guy. I think that he adds a little bit of juice as well. And I would say if they gave Trey Tucker, the rookie from Cincinnati, a shot, I think he's somebody that can make something happen on special teams as well.
All right. I think it's 2.5 out here in the desert right now. The consensus right now, Raiders favored at home over the Steelers. What do you have in a way of a prediction for us, Vinny?
Yeah. This is a game that if you're a Raider fan and the Raiders don't win this game, I think that would make for a bleak next week.
Likewise, Vinny. Over here.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree definitely. And it is kind of a who's going to break here type of a game, but especially defensively, I just feel like if the Raiders aren't showing signs of progress against this offense, that probably doesn't bode well for moving forward. So I'm not going to make a prediction, but I would, if I was a Raider fan, I'd be disappointed if the Raiders didn't win this one.
All right, and tell people once again where they can find you out there this weekend, and tell them a little bit about where they can find you on the radio and find your writing.
Absolutely, I appreciate that. Morning tailgate show, 7 to 10 a.m. Pacific time. Monday through Friday on Raider Nation Radio. You can go to Raidernation or Raiders.com every day, and they stream it live there if you're out of the market. So and then cover the Raiders for the Las Vegas Review-Journal. We're Vegas Nation, so go to VegasNation.com. You can read all of our stories and podcasts and all that good stuff at VegasNation.com. And I appreciate you let me say all that.
No problem. And follow Vinny on Twitter at Vinny Bonsignor. We'll have that link in the post on SteelersDepot.com as well too. Vinny, it's great catching up with you again, and hope you enjoy the game, and we look forward to the next time these two teams getting together, having you back on the Terrible Podcast again with Dave and Alex.
All right. I appreciate it. I love Pittsburgh. I love getting out there.
And welcome back to the Terrible Podcast. And again, our special thanks to Vinny Bonsignor. Be sure to follow him on Twitter at Vinny Bonsignor. That is BONSIGNORE. Again, he covers the Raiders for VegasNation.com and host of the morning tailgate show for Raider Nation Radio. So always great to hear from Vinny, Dave.
Yeah, Vinny. One thing about him, boy, he's not afraid to give you long, detailed answers, and I like that. I mean, he will talk and expand on questions and all like that. Really has become one of my favorites to have on the show, and we'll see how long. It's been a couple of years in a row. The Steelers have played the Raiders, and we'll see if that continues. But you can bet anytime moving forward that the Steelers do play the Raiders, that we'll have Vinny on, and if people get a chance to run out to Resorts World and say hello to Vinny, I'm sure he would appreciate knowing and that you heard him on the Terrible Podcast.
Yeah, for sure. Again, that's Red Tail at Resorts World, meet and greet 6 p.m. Saturday before the Sunday game between the Steelers and Raiders. So, Dave, let's you and I preview this game as well. We'll start with the Raiders offense, 1-1 on the season. They got blown out by Buffalo in week 2. They got a narrow win over the Denver Broncos in week 1. And so both teams really trying to obviously get to 2-1 here. What are your thoughts when you look at and evaluate this Raiders offense?
They're a team that's trying to figure out how to run the ball successfully as well. Now they like to put a fullback out there quite a bit. They are not opposed of going to some heavier formation looks and all, and they've struggled to run the football. Now they, like the Steelers did in week 1 against the Bills this past week, the Raiders got behind in the game and kind of took out what they really like to do here. But this is a team that obviously with Josh Jacobs in the backfield, they want to run the football. That's what they want their identity to be. They use Jimmy G under center quite a bit, a lot. And you'll see a lot of those fullback lead runs right up the gut there. You will see an occasional, in fact, it was really set up real nice, that end around to, who was that wide receiver?
Trey Tucker, I believe.
Yeah. I mean, the limited split on the outside, you look at that thing at the all 22, and I think Jimmy was under center on that play. You look at that thing right when the jet motion is happening there, right before a handoff, you're thinking, oh man, there's no way they don't hit this one. And they did for big yardage on that one. But this is a team that likes to run, that likes to use play action. They are not opposed to using Josh Jacobs in either the screen game or the the release and dump off over the middle of the field too. So they like Josh Jacobs. They're not afraid to use Josh Jacobs, and I would expect that's going to carry over into this game with them. Get their running game going and then build everything up off of that.
Yeah, they have to get that run game going. It's really been stuck in the mud. You had the stat in talking to Vinny, 1.6 yards per carry for Josh Jacobs. His long run this year is 7 yards. I mean, it's really been a struggle for them, and they are kind of the opposite when when you look at the Cleveland Browns run game, they are between the tackles, downhill, fullback, 6 offensive linemen. That's Larry Warford, the former Lions guard, who's a big body there. And so they use a fullback a lot and kind of that more traditional block first sense. And so that's their personality, and they've really struggled to have that success so far. But knowing how bad Pittsburgh's been against the run, knowing there's no Cam Hayward, you can bet they're going to really try to test the run this week. And with the pass game, I think the numbers look decent for him. I think he's missed some stuff, but when you have Adams, you get Myers back. Those are 2 pretty good targets on the outside.
Yeah, absolutely. And they like to run that slot fade to Adams. You'll see that in here. What else do they like to do? I mean, he's not opposed to working the football up over the middle. He did kind of give Devontae a hospital ball late in that game, though, kind of some air in that, and just trying to make a big play at the end of the game there. Overall, one guy that I would expect them to try to get off the snide, if you will, this weekend is Hunter Renfrow. Just not a lot of action for him so far. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them kind of, force some maybe stuff early into Hunter Renfrow. I tell you, another thing that stuck out on that touchdown of theirs as well too. Out of 22 personnel, with one of the tight ends being the extra offensive lineman there. What they call that, a smoke screen with the Devontae Adams that was set up very, very nice and executed very, very well with the offensive lineman on that left side getting out into space and sealing that one block off for really what constituted an easy touchdown in that situation. So I would imagine with the going against the Steelers pass rush and all. What'd you think about? Look, their offensive line has yet to give up a sack so far, and I think as a whole, even in situations where Jimmy Garoppolo had to hold the football longer against the Bills, I thought the Raiders' offensive line held up really well. Now there was a lot of just only 4-man rushes by the Bills, but I thought the line held up really, really well. I thought Jacobs did a good job in blocking when asked to pick some stuff up as well. But I could see a situation where maybe they try to get the ball out of Jimmy's hands in passing situations, especially if they're in second and very manageable type situations here. I don't think they want to get themselves in a situation where Jimmy G has to hold the football as long. But what stuck out to me in the tape specifically from that game against the Bills was when Jimmy G did have to hold on to the football, the line held up really well. And if you look at the interceptions that he threw in that game as well too, one was batted up into the air and kind of he's kind of fading away, kind of a deeper pass rush. A lineman got his hands up and that ball was tipped. And on the second one, Matt Milano made a hell of a damn play, kind of reaching over the target in that situation there. So I think overall Jimmy does a good job decision wise. I think he's seeing the field very well. Now this hasn't resulted in obviously a lot of explosion for this team, but he will throw down the sideline. He'll throw that back shoulder. He'll throw that slot fade and all. And then once again, there was even one instance in this game, I think in the first half there against cover 3 that they're not afraid to let their outside guys try to win and get over the top and throw over the top of a cover 3 situation.
Sure. They paid Adams a bunch of money and traded for him, obviously. They paid Myers, I believe, a good sum of money, and they got some weapons on the outside. So if you're Pittsburgh, the 2 guys, of course, you want to take away Devontae Adams and Josh Jacobs, which Pittsburgh very effectively took away last year. Jacobs and Adams were very quiet in Pittsburgh's Christmas Eve win. I think held the Raiders to 10 points, whatever the number was, but the Raiders do have a better, number 2 receiver on the outside in Myers, who had a big week 1, 9 catches for 81 yards and 2 touchdowns. And Renfrow, very quiet for Renfrow, 1 target all year in the 2 games. And he's a guy that's one of the better route runners in football. And so I'm really surprised by that. But Adams and Jacobs are the guys to take away. My only other note here for this Raiders offense is in that pass game, a lot of vertical divide routes, a lot of post and corner, post and a seam, something like that. That's going to try to put some of these safeties in conflict. So how do you defend that? It can be tough. Cover 2, you don't want the middle of the field to be open against some of these divide routes, and cover 1, that safety going to get put in a bind. So do you try to maybe play some cover 4? Do you maybe man up a bit more in this game? I'm not quite sure, but I'm a little worried about some of those vertical divide routes because the Raiders seem to lean on that and have had some success with it.
What do you think about some robber in this?
Yeah, I mean, you could, just depending on the situation, you typically get that more like third and obvious pass situations, put that rubber near the sticks, take away a crosser. But yeah, I'm just a bit worried about, them getting a big play over the middle because they're going to, run this divide route and put one of these safeties in conflict.
Well, the big focus, in my opinion, you got to shut down that run game. Don't let, and we'll have to see if Fehoko is part of that. It feels like he's going to be part of that this week up the gut there. Got to have you can't have what you had happen early on in that game against the Browns, where even though you're getting some arms or some shoulders on a guy like Nick Chubb, have those all those yards after contact there. So stop the run first and foremost, and pay a whole hell of a lot of attention. I want. If they lose this game, it should come down to guys like Renfro and their other wide receiver doing the damage here.
Yeah, you don't want Adams to be the
Myers.
guy that beat you. I mean, Myers is a talented player, but he's no Devontae Adams. And they really have not spread the ball around. I mean, I know they've had some injuries, but I believe the only 2 receivers that have caught more than 1 pass through 2 games are Myers and Adams. And the tight ends aren't involved. They traded Waller away, not really replaced him. They draft Mayer, but I think he's 1 catch on the season. So, it's still early, but their game plan has really gone through just a couple of people so far.
Right. And once again, the score in that Buffalo game kind of dictated them going away some things that they like to do. But that's them in a nutshell. I mean, I think overall their offensive lines, here's the thing that stuck out finishing up some tape this morning here with them. Statistically and offensively, they don't, it doesn't look all that. But man, schematically, they look light years ahead of what the Steelers have done so far this year.
That's a good summation of it, where maybe their talent isn't at Pittsburgh's level in some respects, at least when Pittsburgh in theory could be at their best. But schematically, I agree, they have looked strong. And yeah, that line, it's not flashy, but Colton Miller's screwing up a lot at left tackle, Illuminor at right tackle. He's a veteran. He's playing some good ball for them. They were really high on Andre James. I believe he replaced Rodney Hudson. They gave him a contract, and I think he's been okay, not great, but held his own. And so they got some big people too. I mean, they like size up front, and Warford's that 6 offensive lineman. So again, that's why Fehoko got signed, and Fehoko should be active. I don't know exactly how they're going to have all the actives and actives, but Fehoko is the guy that you want dressed for a game like this.
I agree. And for the Steelers to win this game, Jimmy Garoppolo has to suffer his first sack, his second sack, probably his third sack, maybe even a 4th sack for the Steelers to win this game. And there should be instances in this for guys like Highsmith and Watt to win.
There are, but I think these are some decent tackles, and I imagine everyone, it's interesting because you listen to the opposition talk, and it used to be just about TJ Watt. Now you see Highsmith being mentioned in that conversation too. I think the league is recognizing pretty quickly, with instances like Monday night's win, how much of a threat Alex Highsmith is too.
That's one of the things that gets you so upset about this team right now. Man, they are so good on the edge right now. I mean, can you name a better duo right now than these 2?
I can't. I mean, I'd have to think about the whole list. I'm sure Browns fans would take issue and say they got their guys in Zadarius Smith and Myles Garrett, and there's probably some team I'm missing right now, but I can't tell you with confidence who's better than TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith.
And what about a top 3 across the league?
Yeah. I mean, with Marcus Golden and, Herbig, it's been, how do you think Herbig's done? I know the snap count's been limited, but it's been, I guess, nondescript, pretty quiet.
Yeah, but I mean, once again, you nailed it. I mean, not a lot of snaps out there for him right now.
But to your point, sure. I mean, you got, the pass rush has never I mean, besides Watt getting hurt, whenever he's healthy, the pass rush is just a given. Like it's going to be one of the best in football and continues to be that way.
Yeah, I'd like to take my chances, get him into some of these situations that we saw Garoppolo in against the Bills, where he has to hold on to that football a little bit longer. And once again, he held up pretty good in those situations against the Bills. I thought protection overall. And once again, it seemed like the Bills were sending only rushing 4, but they did do a good job, I thought, that line and handling stunts and all like that.
Yeah, but Garoppolo's not super mobile, so hopefully if you can get to him, you're going to get him down and not try to play this cat and mouse game like they did against Watson, who they sacked 6 times, but you could have had 10 sacks in that game. Watson, got out of a couple too.
Right.
All right, flipping over to the Raiders defense, and I know I've harped on it before, and I mentioned this to Vinny, but I mean, the Raiders, they are a stubborn bunch. They are going to play their 4-2-5, no matter if you put 2 tight ends, a fullback, you can put, 11 offensive linemen out there. They're going to be in 4-2-5. They'll play dime in passing situations. But what I mentioned earlier was you better be able to run the ball. If I'm Pittsburgh, Dave, I'm going heavy. I'm going 13 personnel. I'm going 6 offensive linemen. If they're going to stay in their 4-2-5 with 2 linebackers in that nickel corner, which is a good player in Nate Hobbs, but I want to run the ball and really be physical against the Raiders.
I do too. I once again, and no disrespect to Bob Spillane, he comes down and plays the run hard and all, but I'm testing him a lot in this game in that front. I think even I think they're who's their center? Bilal,
the nose tackle.
Yeah, nose tackle.
Yeah, Nichols.
Nichols. He's a little banged up this week, and I think if you look at some of the stuff that the Bills did in this game, they got some of their guards on the move in that game as well too. So I think there's a lot to learn from what the Bills did with running the football that the Steelers should be copying and pasting in this game. And then if you're going to run off guard towards tackle, go at Tyree, man. You got to go at Tyree in this game. Right.
Because Max Crosby's a tough guy to go after. I know we think about him more as a pass rusher than a run defender, but Pittsburgh's had their issues. I know Pat Frymuth has had his issues against Max Crosby. And so, but regardless of how you want to do it, I mean, I just think because they're not playing all their big people up front, this is a game where if you can't run against the Raiders, who have been run on, their run defense is bottom 3rd in football, then you can't run on anybody. So this is the week to, I think, go heavy. I mean, every week, obviously, you want to run the ball, you want to be physical, but I think just schematically, it should set up well for Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and I would, like Matt Canada was asked about, I would think seriously about putting Broderick out there as an extra lineman, especially, look, what did Georgia do a lot of with Washington and Jones side by side? Now, obviously, Jones was the tackle there, but you could roll out some super heavy packages in this game, and especially with Crosby staying on his side, you know what you're going to get on the other side. I would attack the snot out of Tyree. I really would on that side.
Sure, I'm with you, and that's going to be, I guess, just to the Steelers' left, correct? If you're going to go after Tyree Wilson, so maybe pull one of these guys across, I don't know, something like that. But yeah, I mean, it's, even their other inside backer who plays a bunch, Diablo was a college safety, so they don't really, I mean, Spillane, is a dude against the run, but other than that, I think you can attack these guys. So that's the thought there. In the pass game, I think you mentioned, and I saw on tape, zone heavy team, a lot of cover 2, some cover 4 as well. They try to bring the safeties down to help, mitigate that 4-2-5 package that they run. I mean, they're physical. It's a physical unit. Hobbs is a really good player, and Jacorian Bennett from Maryland has been physical. He's got 16 tackles this year, and the safety play, I mean, they got some guys that can hit, but I mean, it's not an overly impressive secondary.
Right. And I would imagine, like Vinny said, they're going, what they have been so far in the first 2 games, their concentration on not giving up the big play. They will probably be fine with having the Steelers, kind of dink and dunk, maybe, if you will. I mean, the tight ends so far against them have had some catches, not an astronomical amount of yards, but they have had some, 16, 17 catches, something along those lines, I think, for over 100 yards. And I think a touchdown there. This might be a good week. And look, you go back to all those breakdowns that you used to do on Bob Spillane getting singled up in some situations where maybe he doesn't want to be, right?
Yeah, I mean, that was the whole linebackers on receivers thing. I mean, I think Pittsburgh, to their credit, has cleaned that up, and I don't know if that's an issue as much in Vegas right now, but he's not a man coverage kind of guy, and he has played literally every single snap through the first 2 games. So he is their all situations player. He was a linebacker in Pittsburgh last year, and so can you get Warren on Spillane for a couple of matchups? I think that's an advantage for Jaylen Warren.
I would agree because he Spillane, in zone, he doesn't cut very well, right? He doesn't change your direction. So if you run some option routes or something like that at him, especially like you noted, Warren's been very good in the past game. So maybe that's an area that you can exploit in this. And you just have got to have. Another thing that Warren Sharp pointed out, which it's been easy to do about Pickett throwing outside the numbers and all like that. That goes back to some of the things too that we've talked about with yards after the catch. You're more likely to get more yards after the catch with stuff thrown towards the middle of the field than you are outside the numbers, right? So need to try, continue to try to get. Attack the middle of the field more to give yourself some run after catch opportunities, because obviously they're probably going to be trying to keep a lid on this thing on the back end. So if you can get some of these zones, get some guys running free in space towards the middle of the field, you're more likely to bust one like you saw happen in that game last week for the Steelers against the Browns.
I wonder if in the past game you're going to see a similar route tree to the 49ers, because the 49ers were a cover 3, cover 4 type of team, and the Raiders are pretty zone heavy, maybe a bit more cover 2, but you might see some of those, the all curl special that Matt Canada loves to run. But as you said, hopefully a week for Pat Frymuth to come alive, because you're right, the tight ends have had success against the Raiders. I know that Kincaid had a good game, and Knox caught a touchdown last week. And I mean, how is Frymuth only have 1 catch through 2 games? I mean, that's a pretty baffling stat.
Right. Seems like you should be able to get him going in this game, especially they're going to pay obviously a lot of attention to Pickens and not let him kill you up over the top.
My last note for the Raiders defense is I think some play action on the goal line. As much as I think about running the ball and you can be physical, I think the Raiders are pretty aggressive and they bite downhill. I know Knox open on play action at the 1 yard line for a touchdown. There was a 4th and goal play, which the Raiders got to stop on, but they left Stephon Diggs wide open. There was some confusion, I think, miscommunication, and he got open. So I think some play action, low red zone, you might get somebody wide open.
Right. And I think I had the stat in the first 2 games that they did play against Russell Wilson and Josh Allen, but opposing quarterbacks so far in the first 2 games against the Raiders have been strong off of play action.
Okay. I know in general, they're completing 81% of their passes against the Raiders. The Raiders have tried to keep a lid on things. I think as Vinny talked about, they did not allow Buffalo to throw deep. And that is a concern because the Raiders blueprint's going to be the same as the 40. I think it's going to be very similar to the 49ers in terms of the scheme. 8-man box, stop the run, don't get beat deep, kind of player going to have a very similar game plan.
You just Zoom just cut out on you and then reconnected.
Okay. I can repeat that. I think the game plan the Raiders will be very similar to the 49ers, where it's going to be 8-man box, stop the run, play the corners off, cover 3, cover 4, don't get beat deep. That was their game plan against Buffalo. And so I know the 49ers have more talent, but I think schematically what you're going to see from Vegas is going to be very similar to what you saw against San Francisco.
All right. We'll be on the lookout for that then.
And then just last note, overall, I think as Vinny mentioned as well, the specialists for the Raiders are good. A.J. Cole's one of the best punters in football, and their kicker Carlson's pretty good too. Right.
Tell the thing is, you probably focused in more on Hobbs for them. What's give a quick rundown on Hobbs and his role?
Yeah, I mean, he's the de facto quasi linebacker in their 4-2-5. So, typically when you think base defenses in the NFL, Pittsburgh has their 3-4. The Bengals, for example, have their 4-3. The Raiders are always in nickel with 5 DBs. Hobbs is a defensive back. He's not terribly big, but he is pretty physical. And so he's always kind of in the box as that, again, de facto third linebacker next to Spillane and Diablo. And so they're trying to be scheme versatile and be able to cover and still try to stop the run. And so he's a guy I believe has played, I think, 97% of the snaps this year. And so he really is their all situations guy, kind of like Mike Hilton, but I mean, Hilton was not used in that every down sense. It's, I know Tom made a reference to Buffalo and Teron Johnson, who's kind of their every down nickel corner. And so bottom line is, they don't have 3 linebackers. They have 4 down linemen. They have 2 linebackers. They have Hobbs to play in the box as that de facto third guy.
All right. Who are we talking about the most in this for a Steelers win offensively if the Steelers win this game?
That's a good question. I mean, I think hopefully the run game in general with Harrison Warren and just the improvement there. I think I think this is the time to run the ball. I think they can do it. And then the pass game, Pickens might be taken away, and I think they're going to keep things in front. It might be Pat Frymuth. This might be Pat Frymuth's week to step up and have a big game.
If the Steelers rush for less than 80 yards in this game, do they win?
Probably not, but I mean, it's hard to say. This team is weird. They can have some really crooked numbers in a bad way offensively and still win, so it's hard to say.
All right. Good breakdown. Really good breakdowns on the site for offense and defense if people get a chance to run by and see those.
Yeah, credit to Josh Carney and Jonathan Heitritter for their contributions on the individual side. I focus more on scheme. They write about the individual play, and it's all worth checking out on Steelers Depot. Okay, Dave, Thursday night, I am 1-0 on the week, taking the 49ers, right? You took the Giants, I believe, or did you take the 49ers?
No, I took the Giants last minute because I envisioned the game going the way that it went, except for the fact I had the Giants getting one of those late scores to just cover that 10.5. So you won it. You took the 49ers. Boy, they didn't even have who's a receiver?
Ayuk.
Yeah, they didn't have Brandon Ayuk, and they didn't even miss him in that game. They have scored 30 points 3 games in a row now, 90 points in total. How many more games is it going to take the Steelers to get to 90 points? But I think, and look, they were expected to win that game anyway, but the 49ers look for real.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they're just a well-coached team. Yeah, you're right. It feels like no matter who they have or don't have out there, they just don't miss a beat. They play their game and they're effective, and the Giants are off to a brutal start. But before we make the rest of our Week 3 picks, including the Steelers game, let's hear from our friends Dave over at MyBookie.
Yeah, let's. Aaron Rodgers' season is officially over, but yours has just begun at MyBookie. NFL, college football, and a brand new cash-out system give you options to bet and win all season long. First 2 legs of your parlay hit, cash out early and place another bet, or let it ride for a chance at a bigger payday. Join us at MyBookie for an entire season filled with daily odds boost, same game parlays, and huge prize pool contests. Right now, MyBookie has a no strings attached cash bonus that lets you deposit and withdraw quick. Use promo code TERRIBLE on your first deposit of $50 or more, and you can receive up to $200 in cash instantly credited to your MyBookie account. That's promo code TERRIBLE to claim your cash bonus now at mybookie.ag. You can bet anything, anytime, anywhere, only with MyBookie.
And we thank MyBookie for their continued support of the podcast. All right, Dave, let's make the rest of our Week 3 picks.
All right, let's get after it here real quick, and we'll start with New England at the Jets. The Jets at home plus 2.5 points.
Yeah, there's some crazy numbers out there. Last time the Patriots started 0-3, it was something like 20-something years ago, and the Jets winning, I think, at New England. I'm going to say the streak continues. Give me the Pats.
I will take the Patriots as well to cover the 2.5. Chargers on the road against the Vikings. Boy, the Vikings need one here. Vikings at home laying 1 point to the Chargers.
Well, heck, the Chargers need one here too, aren't they? Both 0-2 in this one. This is the chaos game. Both teams just always find ways to lose, and so somebody has to win. Maybe they tie. Give me the Chargers.
I'll take the Chargers plus a point. In other words, I think the Chargers win this outright. Colts at the Ravens. Ravens laying 8 at home against the Colts. who's going to have Minshew, right?
I think Richardson with a concussion. I don't think he's going to play. A lot of rookie quarterbacks hurt this week. Richardson, no Bryce Young in Carolina, at least likely not to play there. It could Minshew mania. I'll say the Colts cover this one late. Backdoor cover. Give me the Colts.
I'll take the Ravens. I'll lay the 8 points. Broncos on the road against the high-flying Dolphins. Dolphins laying 6.5 at home against the Broncos.
Yeah, I got to go Miami in this one, Dave.
I'll go Miami as well in this one. The Tennessee Titans on the road against the Browns. Browns laying 3.5 against the Titans.
Yeah, Titans have been fighting. I mean, they got a big win over the Chargers in overtime last week. Yeah, this one's tough. I think the Browns bounce. Man, without Chubb. Man, this one's really tough overall. I think I just suddenly talked myself into Tennessee in this one.
I'll take the Browns bouncing back. I'll lay the 3.5 in this one. Saints on the road against the Packers. Jordan Love playing pretty good and so far here. Packers laying 1.5 at home against the Saints.
At home, Aaron Jones returns. Give me Green Bay.
I'll take the Saints in an upset. Give me the 1.5 there. Houston Texans on the road against the Jaguars. Jaguars favored by 8.5 at home. Oh, wait. Is this one overseas or no?
I mean, statistically, probably. I don't think it is, but I don't know for sure.
I don't remember if this one's where this one's at or not. I think it's in Jacksonville.
Okay, but they could play in Antarctica, and I'm still taking the Jaguars. So give me Jacksonville.
I have the same thinking. Give me the Jaguars late 8.5. Bills on the road against the Commanders. Commanders +6 at home versus the Bills.
I mean, the Commanders have been impressive. Sam Howell, is he going to be the best quarterback out of this Kenny Pickett draft class? I mean, who the heck knows? But this one, Buffalo, was a big game. Yeah, I'll say the Commanders cover. Bills win, but Washington covers.
I'll take the Bills to cover that 6 points on the road. Falcons on the road against the Lions. This should be a good game. Lions at home laying 3 against the Falcons.
You know, someone said Atlanta was 2-0, and I said, that's not right. But I was wrong. They are 2-0, which is kind of crazy to think about. So kudos to them. They got a really good run game. What's the line again?
3. Lions by 3 at home.
Yeah, I just think there's just no pass game really for Atlanta. Give me Detroit.
I'll take Detroit late 3 as well, too. Panthers on the road against the Seahawks. Andy Dalton, right? In this one, Seahawks laying 6 at home against the Panthers.
I'll go Seattle.
I'll go Seattle late 6 as well, too. Ooh, Bears on the road against the Chiefs. Chiefs laying 12.5 at home. Ooh.
Yeah, it's been, I mean, I know it's bad in Pittsburgh, but hey, Dave, at least we're not Chicago. I don't even know where to begin with everything over there. I mean, can they try to find a way to rally? I'm going to just stick with the consensus and go Kansas City.
Is that a t-shirt you can buy down in the strip district down there? At least we're not the Bears.
Right.
I'll take the Chiefs cover that 12.5. Dallas on the road against the Cardinals. Dallas laying 12.5 in this one.
And they lose Trayvon Diggs to that freak ACL injury. They got some other injuries up front. I mean, I know the Cardinals are the Cardinals, and Dallas, that defense, though, is just still so good for the Cowboys. And there's really nothing in the pass game to scare you if you're from Arizona's perspective. So I'll go Dallas.
I'll go Dallas late at 12.5 as well, too. Let's see. 2 Monday night games, right?
Again? Are they doing that again?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay.
Philadelphia at Tampa. Philadelphia laying 5 on the road against the Baker Mayfields.
Yeah, kudos to Baker Mayfield. I think it's been a good start for them, but I mean that run game for Philadelphia is just so strong. So give me the Eagles.
I'll take the Eagles late at 5 in that one, and then the Rams at the Bengals. What's going to happen with Burrow in this one? Bengals laying 3 at home against the Rams.
Yeah, I have no idea. I mean, he's got to play. You can't sit Burrow. You're 0-2, and you're going to turn to Jake Browning, who's thrown 1 career pass. I mean, you go to 0-3, man. You know, the odds on that and trying to come back. I think he's going to play. How well is he going to play? I think the Bengals find a way, despite all that they're going through right now. So give me Cincinnati.
I feel the same way. They'll find a way to eke out a win here. It might not be pretty, but I think they cover that 3 points as well, too. All right, that circles us back to the Steelers Sunday night against the Raiders. Raiders 2.5 home point favorites. Mike Tomin looking for his first road win still against the Raiders. The Steelers bouncing or playing after on a short week. Stats under Mike Tomin been pretty good overall, but I mean there's still the trend factor here going out west, first road game of the season, and once again Mike Tomin has been some weird games against the Raiders, but Mike Tomin looking for that first road W against the Raiders franchise. First game in Vegas, obviously.
Yeah, it's never been easy against the Raiders, Teryl Pryor to Bruce Gradkowski to whatever else there's been over the years.
The X-ray machine.
The X-ray machine?
Remember the whole X-ray Ben Roethlisberger last time?
Oh, it was broken, right?
Yeah, had to leave the game. And who came in for that game? Dobbs, I think. Wasn't it Dobbs that came in that game?
I blocked that one out, but yeah, there's been some bad ones. So I want to see where you go because you jumped on the history train last week. And listen, you've been money, Dave. You're 2-0 picking Steelers games. I'm 0-2, so I'm scared to basically whatever I pick go in the opposite direction of. And listen to Dave here. We'll see if we get on. We've not both picked the same outcome in the first 2 weeks, I don't believe, here for Pittsburgh. But long story short, I think Pittsburgh gets a run game going. Will it be amazing? Probably not, but it's going to be better. If they can't run against this Raiders team, it's going to be just a punch in the gut. The Raiders offense, there's a couple weapons, Adams being healthy, Myers coming back, that's big for them. I just think Pittsburgh finds a way to contain that run game, puts it on Garoppolo's shoulders. They really did a good job last year, taking Adams away, really containing Josh Jacobs. Granted, that was with Cam Hayward. All of that to say is, Dave, I got Pittsburgh winning this one with kind of your traditional weird score, 19-17 on a Chris Boswell 46-yard game-winning field goal as time expires.
All right. So you have 19-17 there. My thinking's a lot along the lines of yours in the fact, look, I just think talent wise, I mean, if you just line up and look at these two teams talent wise, I think the Steelers are the more talented team overall. Now, obviously, offense hasn't done much of anything here. Defense giving up big plays on the ground. All that said, I just think once again, if they can't run on the Raiders team, then who can they run on there? Yeah, they take some pressure off Kenny for a change. Maybe use some play action. And long story short, I think the Steelers win this. I think Mike Tomin finally gets his first road victory against the Raiders. I don't think it's going to be as ugly as I said would be the case in the game against the Browns here. But I just think that I think the Steelers are going to get sacks on Garoppolo in this game. I think they're going to be able to go after certain aspects of that defense of the Raiders, be able to run the ball. I'm going to predict that the team rushes for over 100 yards in this game combined as well too. That's where I'm at on this. I have a very similar score here. I have the Steelers 20, the Raiders 17. So one louder than yours. One more than yours. 20-17. You have it 19-17. But for the first time this year, I think we both have the Steelers winning.
Mm-hmm. Right, we do. And that you might want to take that back, Dave, because I'm kind of the kiss of death over here. Do you have a game-winning field goal, or is it just one of those nail biters, but Pittsburgh gets a fourth down stop, just like last year?
Yeah, I think it obviously comes down to the Raiders' final possession, but I think the Steelers find a way to get off the field somehow.
Okay. Yeah, and I guess that wasn't a fourth down play, but the last drive of the game where Sutton picked off Carr, and then Connor Hayward had the run to finish things out. Regardless, both picking Pittsburgh to win, and hopefully to go 2-1 on the season.
Boy, and even if it looks ugly, 2-1, an ugly 2-1,
better than an ugly 1-2.
Right. All right. Shall we get to a couple emails here real quick?
Yep. Let's get to a couple reader emails and close out today's show. And if you like long episodes, this one's for you because I imagine we've gone pretty long today.
All right, Bryce, have no idea what to expect for this game, but here we go. Some thoughts. How much of the offensive line struggles can be pinned on Mason Cole? He seems to be having a lot of problems in the early portion of the season. Second, if Minka can't go, should the Steelers use more of the Pat P at safety package in an effort to get JPJ on the field? Alex already talked that Mason Cole, not having the best of season with kind of the blocking scheme that they're wanting to do. So, yeah, I mean, look, the whole offensive line, and Alex has a long video up this morning on run game woes, right?
I do. There's scheme issues. There's execution issues. There's just minor detail stuff that if you just clean up small things, you would have had more success. I don't want to pin it all on Mason Cole or any one player. That would be unfair to do. But I think Cole has not been good as a run blocker and especially poor on zone runs.
What about Pat P at safety if Minkah can't go?
Well, I mean, obviously, it seems like Minkah's going to play in this one. I don't know when this email got sent, but even if Minkah doesn't, I mean, you got a couple of safeties in Casey and Neal. I mean, Peterson will rotate in dime packages and spin back to play some safety occasionally, but he's not going to be used there as a starter, even if Minkah does not play.
What do you think about some of those rotations and the timing? Could they tip them off anymore?
I really hadn't paid attention, but you're right. They're kind of it's been early, hasn't it been, with some of the spins that Peterson has done? Is it, do you think that's just early season stuff or like Peterson never doing this before?
I don't know, but it's
that's a good point.
He is tipping it off, man, in the few times that he's rotated in that there.
That's a really good point. I had not thought of that. That's because the whole point is to disguise and you're giving the game away pre-snap. Yeah.
I mean, he's taking off running to the bleachers.
True. I had not thought about it that way.
Michael Hewlett writes in, rather be lucky because that offense ain't good. Pickett is continually missing these guys while they're open. It almost like he needs them to be college open to even hit them. 30 and 22 need to split touches, he says. Warren is just too electric to keep off the field. What's up with these weird Canada design run plays, especially if it's second and long? We do a damn outside run to lose 3 more yards. A big thing that we didn't talk about, and I don't want to cut I don't see it getting much better under Canada at the helm. He says Pickens looks like a freaking deer when he had the ball in his hands, which is a good thing. Thank you guys. Basically, it's a rant here. We understand, Michael, here. A big thing in this thing that I pulled the stats on, it's not surprising because Mike Tomin talked about negative plays and all like that. It's like nearly 1 every 4 plays has been a negative play for this offense. Whether it be a sack, whether it be a negative run, whether it be a pass or the one end around jet, for negative yards and all like that. There, man, if you just cut the negative plays in half, could make things a little bit better for you. But if you count everything up, and I'm talking negative plays being 0 yards or less, and then you throw in obviously the sacks and the interceptions, which are negative plays and all like that. It's nearly 1 out of 4 plays can be regarded as negative here. So that's going to be one of my keys is. Why so negative? I try to come up with catchy. So I just gave away one of my keys there for people going to read that article there. Why so negative? Cut out the damn negative stuff and, at least try to play it on even ground here. But thanks for the email, Michael. Deshaun Campbell writes in, sup guys, I come to ask Alex, can you give us a video of what Matt Canada offense should look like? I don't care if it's successful plays from other teams or college. Just show us exactly what the hell this is supposed to look like. I love the one you did yesterday about the run game. He says, giving the linebackers free access to just tee off is ridiculous.
Thank you for that. Appreciate that. The response has been, I think, pretty good. We also got a lot of pushback. That Najee on that crunch run, people think he should have run that inside. No, I mean, he's going to bounce it outside. I was really surprised that so many people weren't getting kind of the concept there. To answer your question, what should this Canada offense look like? Watch the 49ers. That's what it's supposed to be. Obviously, it's not, but that is, in theory, what it's supposed to be.
All right, let's see if we can cram in a couple others in this long show today. David Ricard's about football justice. I have always bought into the idea of the team being a work in progress. Tomlin talks about getting better pretty much weekly. Currently, I'm struggling to understand how this team's offense couldn't carry their momentum from last season into this year, especially because they didn't lose any major personnel. If anything, they've added talent to the group. Do you guys buy into the idea that the team is improving every week? I would think that this year that improvement should be apparent given the youth of Kenny and others. saying all that to say if we don't see improvement this week, my faith in this concept may be shaken.
Yeah, I mean, we'll just have to wait and see. It's a big week, I think. I mean, every week in the NFL is a big week, but again, this is time to show up against a team. I not to excuse the offensive issues, but you did face some really good defenses. I think in San Francisco, which was the best defense in football last year, going to be one of the best defenses, if not the best defense this year. And Cleveland, I think, is a really stout team that's better than where they were a season ago, both in coaching and scheme and in personnel. So yeah, I think it's a pretty telling game this Sunday.
All right. Victor writes in, big fan, first time, long time. Our team's keying in on the Najee Harris Superman jump at the goal line. No real stats, he says, but it feels like Najee tries to jump the offensive line on every run at the goal line. If I was the opposing coach, I would tell one middle linebacker to spy this and attempt to punch the ball out when Najee inevitably jumps. He says, example, Monday versus the Brownies on a 2-point conversion. I don't think we have enough sample size yet of Najee in the first couple of seasons and a couple of games on that. I mean, I do understand there's some recency, obviously, coming into play there, but Najee he's got at least one or two of those kind of touchdowns up over the top, doesn't he? But I think point taken that hasn't he had a couple of those knocked out as well too?
It happened against Cleveland in the finale last year too, and then it happened both times against Cleveland. So maybe the Browns have the book on him. Yeah, I mean, it just depends.
I would just kill to see more opportunities to run at the goal line.
Sure, for sure. Yeah, generally, I'm the Belichick mindset of never extend the ball out to the goal line because of the risk of the fumble. I know on Monday it was a 2-point play, and so it's kind of like a fourth down. There's no down to be played after that, so it's a little more acceptable. Not that a fumble is ever a good thing or something that you're okay with, but if I'm okay if he jumps in fourth down and 2-point situations. Everything else, I'd rather him just kind of barrel ahead.
All right. Long show once again. Got through several of these emails. Alex and I will be back to wrap it up blurry-eyed on Monday here. Hopefully we're talking about a Steelers win. Anything other notes to wrap things up, Alex?
Nope, we'll come back. Yeah, and we'll get out of here. Again, thanks to Vinny for coming on the show. Appreciate his time, and hopefully you guys enjoy the game.
All right. Follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate to the cause, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button up right navigational bar. And also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com. Hit that ad-free button upper right navigational bar and follow the directions that way. Thank you so much for listening to all of our platforms and interacting. And more importantly, the site. Once again, a couple of great scouting reports on offense and defense here up on the site Friday. So you might have to, as the weekend goes on, dig for those a little deeper in the site, but they should be easy to find. But we'll be back on Monday. As always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.